Senator Rubio, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a busy, busy day with so much going on in Washington, D.C., and not much of it terribly good, is it?
No, I mean, just the hits just keep on coming, I guess.
Well, first of all, let's talk for a moment about this Veterans Accountability Act, which you have co-sponsored. You've got 10 Democratic co-sponsors. It's already passed the House. It would pass the Senate overwhelmingly. Don't you think it gets 70, 80 votes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are up to 10 Democratic co-sponsors. We think we could have as many as 12 or 13 by the end of this week if it continues. I think we'd have most of them voting. And you saw in the House, over 160 voted for it. So this is very strong bipartisan support. And quite frankly, the only reason that it's being held up is because of a handful of people who are catering to unions and want to protect civil service status, even at the expense of the accountability in the agency that's supposed to be taking care of our veterans.
It's an amazing thing, and I know that folks who want to help support you on this can go to our website. We have the material and the information posted by Senator Marco Rubio, and also they can click on the banner for Concerned Veterans of America, which has been helping to lead the fight on this particular act. You've also been very busy today asking some very important questions of the administration regarding the release of this Taliban dream team from Guantanamo. What's your deepest concern right now about the way the administration is handling this Bo Bergdahl release?
Well, my deepest concern is that I think all 5 of them, or most of them, are going to return to the battlefield. I mean, we're basically counting on a third-party country to monitor them for about a year and hoping that they'll do that. But eventually, they're going to find themselves back on the battlefield fighting and killing Americans and allies of ours around the world. And so that's my first and overwhelming concern. My second concern is that this sets a very dangerous precedent. I think that now all over the world, enemies of the United States are trying to figure out how they can get their hands on an American serviceman or woman so that they can get some of their own enemy combatants released. And my last concern, and it's also important, is that the president's basically ignored the law. We have a president that has now gone rogue in terms of just ignoring the law. The law says very clearly that before you can release a detainee in Guantanamo, you've got to notify the Congress 30 days in advance. He just ignored it.
And just flat out, is someone going to bring a lawsuit or articles of impeachment? What happens next?
Well, that's a good point. I don't know about the impeachment part. I'm not sure that at this point, we're there. And quite frankly, that I'm not saying anyone's pursuing. But I can tell you that I think even Democrats have to be deeply concerned about what this means for their own role. I mean, there's a Democratic majority in the Senate. They weren't notified except for Senator Reid, who apparently didn't bother to share it with for example, the chairwoman of the Intelligence Committee and others who
Senator
I imagine
Feinstein
are quite upset about this.
Yeah, Senator Feinstein says the president broke the law. With the president breaking the law, if I can interject something, I've been playing this for my listeners all day, Senator. Chuck Hagel saying that they had to release him immediately without giving you guys warning because his health had badly deteriorated. Have you seen any evidence that is even true?
No. And, of course, we're going to continue to ask that question. We had an Intelligence Committee meeting today where none of that was provided. And tomorrow, I hope, or at some point here this week, they're going to share with us the evidence that justifies this. But if that's true, I think they could have come before Congress, and Congress would have said okay, because they would have understood it. But I don't. There's a reason why they didn't. Look, and that's because it isn't true. But here's what we need to remember as well. This was not a coincidence. This was done for political messaging purposes, and here's the proof. First, the president shows up on Memorial Day in Afghanistan, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad he did that and visited the troops. Then he goes to West Point and gives this big announcement about we're pulling out of Afghanistan. And then comes this agreement. This was calculated to happen in the same messaging framework as these other two things that I've discussed. And so this was as much about political messaging as anything else, and he was willing to break the law to do it.
There's another statement by a very high administration official, the National Security Advisor, Susan Rice, who went on ABC TV and said that Bo Bergdahl served with honor and distinction in Afghanistan. Have you seen any evidence that he served with distinction?
Well, we haven't gotten into a service record. I mean, I've seen some of the reporting in the media. I think that the law basically says that there is a criminal justice system within the armed services, that in fact, if there's evidence that he, violated the code and the law in his time in service, there's a process by which the military will pursue that. And I'll leave that up to them to do it because that's their job. I think we should politicize that. And by the way, no one here is lamenting the fact that irrespective of what we may or may not have done, we're happy that an American will be reunited with his family and is no longer under the control of the Taliban or the Haqqani network. But I think we've, as the president especially, has a greater obligation, and that is to the national security of the United States. And the bottom line is, what he did, in addition to being illegal, places the country in a more vulnerable position. We have returned 5 very dangerous criminal murderers and killers to the battlefield, and we have set a precedent that now will incentivize our enemies to try to get their hands on Americans.
And what is this deal of that with no problem because the Qataris are going to monitor these guys for a year? Why only a year?
Well, again, we have not seen the memorandum of understanding. That hasn't been publicly disclosed either. We'll be interested to review that. They've promised to make that available. We'll have more details after that. But I don't have overwhelming confidence in their ability to monitor him or them and protect us from them. And again, I mean, the bottom line is that I don't think there is anyone in the intelligence community in the United States who would tell you that they don't anticipate that the majority of these 5 people will be returning to the fight against America fairly soon.
Marco Rubio, the junior senator from the state of Florida and a possible candidate for the nation's highest office. And I don't think you're too uncomfortable with us even mentioning that. Appreciate your leadership. Support, by the way, this Veterans Administration Accountability Act. Go to our website at michaelmedved.com and click on the banner for Concerned Veterans for America. It'll tell you all about it and what you can do. Senator Rubio, thank you for what you are doing.